Shalom and welcome, family. My name is Adiel, and I'm here on behalf of the Universal Temple of Israel, which is also the Universal Temple of Yahweh, and I want to welcome everyone to today's discussion. Before we begin, let us give honor, glory, and thanks unto our Heavenly Father, Yahweh, with the Lord's Prayer in Hebrew. Tefillah, Abenu Shabbat Shemayim, Yikadesh Merka, Tabo Makuterka, Yazerizonka. Kibashamayim came Baaretz, Elekim Kukenu, Tain Lanu Hayom, Uslat Lanu, All Katienu, Kiwashisolkin, Gamanaknu, Lykotem Lanu, Vial Tefienu, Ladeni Sayom, King Asenu, Minhara, Kilaka, Hamamlaha, Via Gibara, Via Tifiereth, Leolame, Olamim, Sila. Welcome, family. Again, my name is Adiel, and I want to welcome all of you to today's discussion. Today's discussion will be brief, but it is absolutely necessary as we are leaving the High Holy Day season and coming into the next one, which will be Feast of Weeks. Coming away from Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we have to remember that this is a season which marks the beginning of the transition from one kingdom to the next. So it is imperative that we be mindful of the things that the Lord Yahweh desires for us to be mindful of, so that we may reach that promised land. And I kind of gave it away a little bit, but today's key scripture here is Exodus chapter 20, verse 17, which I will read here. Exodus chapter 20 is the Ten Commandments, and verse 17 details the last of the Ten Commandments. And it reads, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant," so on and so forth. So this particular verse is, "Thou shalt not covet." Okay? And in Hebrew, the word for covet is chamad, and it means to desire in or to take pleasure in. It means to desire greatly. Now, why is it that this is the last of the Ten Commandments? We know that "thou shalt know the God before me" is the first of the Ten Commandments because it is the most important. We know that to have another God before Yahweh makes all the other commandments invalid. We cannot keep the commandments in reference to the Creator if we have another God before him. But this particular one is last for a reason, and it's so that we can remember this one. It'll be the last thing on our minds, because as we move from one king to the next, it's very important for us to remember not to covet. I'll explain why. We see this example in both, again, Sodom and Gomorrah and in the Exodus from Egypt. Both exoduses from one particular place to another. So, in Sodom, we saw that once the angels of the Lord Yahweh compelled Lot and his family to leave Sodom, Lot's wife, and before I go on, let me give this caveat here that this particular story, what you need to take away from it is that it demonstrates different types of people, right? It is not a gender thing, a race thing. It demonstrates different kinds of people. And in demonstrating different kinds of people, Lot's wife personifies people who have a vested interest or a love in the world, right? They have some type of desire that's behind them in the place that Yahweh has compelled them to leave. And see, so we saw in Genesis chapter 19, let's go ahead and go to that. And verse 26, it states, we'll go to 25 first. And he overthrew those cities, and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. Verse 26. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. So we see here clearly that Yahweh did not desire for us, when he brings us from one place to another, he does not desire for us to look back. We saw that also in the story of the man from Judah in the book of Kings, where he told him not to turn back, to go back from the place he sent him, not to eat or drink in those places. And he, of course, turned back on that, and, well, we know what happened to him. So we saw here that Lot's wife was turned to a pillar of salt because she turned back. Now, how does that relate to the Exodus in Egypt? Exodus chapter 32. Okay, verse 1 reads, And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods for which shall go before us. For as this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we would not what has become of him. Verse 7. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Moses, Go, get thee down, for thy people which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. Verse 8. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. You see, you find something very interesting. What just happened here, when the children of Israel turned aside or turned around, they began to worship molten statues. And they began to give credit to those molten statues for bringing them out of the land of Egypt in place of Yahweh. So we see something very interesting about coveting. Coveting brings us full circle back to the beginning of the Ten Commandments, which state, Thou shalt have no other God before me. When we covet, it does something very interesting. Coveting in and of itself is an offense to your fellow man and your neighbor, right? We know the second half of the Ten Commandments discuss our relationship with our neighbor, whereas the first half discuss our relationship with the Creator Yahweh. But this particular one brings us full circle, because when we begin to covet, we begin to create gods to ourselves. And then it causes us to go full circle back to the first commandment and be in violation of it. But more importantly, coveting does something else. Coveting makes us incapable of going the way that Yahweh commanded us to go. Because in coveting, we hold on tightly to something we either had or something we never had. And it causes us to not look at what Yahweh has or what he has in store for us, right? It causes us to doubt Yahweh's wisdom in what he gave us. It makes us question what we were blessed with. It makes us say things like, Yahweh, I feel like I should have had this rather than what you gave me. I feel like I should have been with this person rather than the person you gave me. And see, at that point, we can no longer fulfill the destiny which he has in store for us, because we are going another way. We're desiring to go another way. We can't leave the place he brought us out of because, like Lot's wife, we want to go back. We want to be with that thing again. Okay? And that's important because both in Sodom and Egypt, he was bringing us out of destruction and into a promised land. And we can't go there when we covet. Coveting is like a chain that binds us to the ground. Okay? And it's more than just that. There's a practical explanation to why we don't covet. Right? Coveting, it makes us not appreciate. And we all know that we must be thankful. We must be appreciative to all that Yahweh has blessed us with. We know that Yahweh blesses each man according to his capability, right? And when we're not satisfied with what he gives us, we begin to worship our belly god, right? The belly god is all of your mortal appetites. It's not just a food thing. It means all those physical, terrestrial appetites you have. And we begin to worship the belly god. And one thing I've always said is that you can never be satisfied with things that you do not need. There is no satisfaction in consuming that which you do not need. You'll never get enough. This is why we see rich people, people who are filthy rich, spending more and more and more and more just to satisfy their belly god, and it never does it. Money that they could use to, fix entire communities, they throw away on pleasures, on temporary pleasures that don't satisfy them. But practically speaking, part of the reason we don't covet is because it also causes the spirit of depression to overtake us. There was a study done so many years back, and it compared social media usage, specific types of social media usage, right? I forget the term that they described it as, but essentially it was negative social media usage. And how they describe negative social media usage is where you utilize social media to negatively compare yourself, right? And what that means in layman's terms is you would look at people that were wealthier than you. You would always look out for people who were doing more things than you. People had relationships that you didn't have, or had physical possessions that you didn't have. When people did this, they found that there was an exceedingly strong correlation between the amount of this sort of social media usage and depression and feelings of low self-esteem. So you notice anything about the amount of depression that's going on today? What do we have today that we never had before? We have social media. I remember growing up and going to college when social media became a thing, right? Back then, MySpace and stuff like that was just coming out. And man, when I was in college, Facebook had just came out. Prior to that, we didn't have that. So there was no way to take a look into these windows, these curated windows into people's lives, so that you could make these comparisons between them and you. Peppermint tea, it's great. But we didn't have that. So we had to live in the world and in the shoes that the Creator gave us. But once social media got here, we saw people that put on a show for a camera. Mind you, these same people might be fighting like cats and dogs once the camera goes off. But all you saw was what they wanted you to see. And it caused you to look at your own life and become dissatisfied, become ungrateful. And it becomes an offense to both the Creator Yahweh and all He's blessed you with, but also to the people in your life. You're never satisfied, and it becomes impossible for you to make your way to the promised land when you're holding on to Egypt. See, the children of Israel, they continue to pine after the comforts of Egypt. And what Yahweh is trying to get us to do is to make sure in these days that we don't hold on too tightly to the comforts of Egypt, because they will keep us from making it to the promised land. Understand, a trip that should have taken less than 2 weeks wound up taking 40 years. And all of those who coveted the comforts of Egypt and complained about Moses and we've been led to somewhere and we may starve to death and we don't know where we're going, the ones who coveted the gods of Egypt, calves, they never made it into the Holy Land. Lot's wife did not make it to the mountain. This is a lesson to us. Be mindful. We cannot covet. We are too close. We are too near to the goal. Please, family, do not turn back. Do not look back. Do not hold on to the comforts of Egypt, nor the dainties of Sodom, because it will keep you from reaching the promised land. With all that being said, family, I will end today's discussion. Understand, we love you all very much. We want to see you across that finish line. And only the Creator Yahweh knows whose destiny it will be. But it is His desire that all men be saved. And it is our desire to walk hands in hand with all of His moral children who love Him, the Creator, above all things. We love you all, family. Have a blessed and wonderful day. Shalom Aleichem and a Yahab.